Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got a great, huge show on this Tuesday afternoon for you guys. We got some breaking news on Joe Arpaio. I want to talk about that. He is back. We've got Donald Trump hilariously struggling to mouth the words of the national anthem. There's really not much else to that story, but I still want to show you. Anyway, we'll have some fun with it. Story on Sebastian Gorka and how that relates to the Fire and Fury book that is, of course, making waves around the White House and has been ever since it has been released. Then we've got Mueller and a possible interview with President Trump. Interesting. Net neutrality as well is on the docket that we have today. We're going to be talking about that. Very important news there. And then we have some police brutality to show you. All that and more today around the nation. So stick around. It's going to be a fantastic show for the next hour. Probably a little bit longer than an hour because sometimes that happens. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes there is so much news inside of one news day that we just end up having to go for longer than an hour. So today might be one of those days. There's so much going on. But anyway, before I get into the show, I want to thank the patrons. I want to thank people watching at home. If you want to support us, of course, you can support independent progressive media by going to patreon.com/TYT Nation. You can also help us by subscribing to our channel, or if you're watching us on Facebook, liking our Facebook page. That's TYT Nation on Facebook, of course. So there's all different ways to actually help our show continue and actually get bigger. So, all right. We depend on you guys, of course, and not corporate sponsors. All right. That said, let's dive right in. Let's start out with Arpaio. Oh, boy. Now, if you thought, hold. Great start. Fantastic. Now, if you thought that a contempt of court arrest would be enough to stop the career of Joe Arpaio, you would be wrong. Because now, after Trump pardoned him, he is making a comeback to the Senate. He is actually running for Senate. An interview with the Washington Examiner's David Drucker, Arpaio had officially announced his intention to seek the Senate seat that is being vacated by retiring Senator Jeff Flake. Jeff Flake, of course, is leaving because he apparently cannot stand Trump, even though he votes for things like the Trump tax cuts. Well, in reality, that's, of course, what a lot of Republicans were planning on doing. They were only staying for the Trump tax cuts. Hey, we're going to get gigantic tax cuts for our donors because that's what they want. Then they're going to give us fantastic jobs afterwards. So once that's done, we have no reason left to stay in the Senate. We're gone. We're going to go and work for our friends. We're going to be lobbyists. That's essentially what happened. So Jeff Flake, he's leaving, and here comes Joe Arpaio, fresh off a pardon, saying, hey, I would like to run. I'm pretty sure there's enough racist people in Arizona to help me at least win. Maybe win, or at least help me run. Oh, boy. So, now, you're going to love this interview, right? So, Arpaio's talking to Drucker, and he says, quote, I have a lot to offer. I'm a big supporter of President Trump. We'll see how far that gets you, since he's incredibly unpopular. He says, I'm going to have to work hard. You don't take anything for granted, but I would not be doing this if I thought that I could not win. I'm not here to get my name in the paper. I get that every day anyway. Yeah, well, you know, the reason you get your name in the paper is because you violate people's civil rights by doing massive racial profiling. According to Raw Story's Brad Reed, Arpaio was recently pardoned by Trump, actually last year, after he was found guilty of contempt of court for willfully violating a federal judge's order to stop a program that would racially profile Latinos. So he goes and he starts a program. Hey, I'm going to racial profile Latinos because I hate Latinos, I hate minorities, and I want to see if they're illegal or not, so I can send them back. So anybody who's brown, immediately suspected of being an undocumented immigrant and pulled over, or suspected of a crime, pulled over. That is racial profiling. That is actually against people's civil rights. It's actually against their Fourth Amendment rights of illegal search and seizure, because basically what they're doing is that they're making it a case of, hey, look, he looks suspicious. Well, why does he look suspicious? Because he's Latino. That's ridiculous. Now, back in 2011, of course, he was ordered by a federal judge to stop this. And despite this order, he said, no, you know what? No, I'm going to continue to racially profile people here, that are Latinos. I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care about the law. I don't care about civil rights. All I care about is hating Latinos. Well, look, you can't do that. Okay, you can't just racially profile people because they look different. That's ridiculous, and I can't believe I have to explain that. But you just can't do that, right? But look, I want to tell you this response posed by Univision back this summer after his pardon, when they asked him, hey, look, Joe, what you did was you violated court orders. You did all this racial profiling. Do you feel bad about it? He responded, quote, not quote, but this is a summary of what he said. Arpaio responded that he had nothing to apologize for and insisted that the Hispanics, his quote, didn't actually hate him despite his program of racially profiling them. No, the Hispanics, they actually love me. Besides, I didn't do anything wrong. That's why Trump had to pardon me. Are you sure his pardon didn't have anything to do with, first of all, your intense love of Donald Trump? You would suck up to him, kiss up to him any way you could. And you're both of your dislike for ethnic minorities. I mean, look, go back to 2016, or I should say 2015, when Donald Trump started his campaign for president. What did he start out? What was the first thing that he said? He talked about how Mexico was not sending us their best. They were sending us rapists and criminals. They were coming over the border. We got to build a wall. We got to build a wall. That was his first policy position that he had taken. We got to build a wall. Got to build a wall. You think that he doesn't have a problem with racial minorities? Of course he does. And so now this guy, Joe Arpaio, who, again, violated people's civil rights, is now running to become a senator. Because, while I guess a pedophile couldn't win in Alabama, a racist criminal might actually have a shot in Arizona. Republicans, man. Look, you asked me, Joe Arpaio should be in jail for what he did. In fact, that's exactly where he was going before he was pardoned. So, excuse me if I decide to randomly go on a little chant here. It goes like this. Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock him up. All right. All sorts of ridiculousness today. Okay. We move forward with the national anthem. So last night, President Trump took time off his busy schedule watching Fox News and eating cheeseburgers in bed to go to the college football championship game between Alabama and Georgia. Now, while there, he took the opportunity to take the field and participate in the national anthem. And while watching the hymn on the, whatever Jumbotron or on the television, some people noticed something very, very interesting. Let's watch. Okay. So a couple of things. I'm sure you noticed that, no, he does not know the words. He tried. He tried. What he did know, to be fair, he sang or lip synced like an excited child. Like, ooh, 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 the bombs. I know the bombs. Bombs bursting in air. I know that one. So look, I'm actually not going to make a huge deal of him not knowing the words. There's a lot of people that don't know the words. To be fair. Okay. Now what I do, or what I will do, is I want to point out the hypocrisy here, right? So Donald Trump is somebody who wants us to respect the flag, right? He wants us to respect the anthem. In fact, he actually made a pretty big deal about respecting the flag and the anthem. In fact, he called for people who were kneeling during the national anthem to be fired. You fire them. Get the sons of bitches out of there. Get them out. Get them out. Get them out. We can't have people disrespecting the flag and the anthem. You could make an argument that poorly mouthing the words and not knowing the words in the national anthem, especially when you've made so much of a big deal about it, is disrespectful. Now, do I think that argument is going to resonate with Trump supporters? No, of course not. I'm sure a lot of those people do the same thing and also do not know the words. In fact, a lot of Trump supporters that are probably watching that video, that were watching that game at the time, they were not standing up with their hands over their hearts in their living room. No, they're sitting on the couch eating potato chips. I can almost guarantee, right? But nonetheless, I can see the excuses already. No, you don't understand. He was trying. At least he was trying. He wasn't openly defying the flag, but that's not really the point, right? In America today, you were considered more patriotic for trying and failing to sing an anthem, while at the same time simultaneously getting pissed off at others who are actually standing or sitting for American values by protesting to bring awareness to everyday injustices happening to fellow Americans. See, Trump is actually a good symbol for a lot of the things that are wrong in America. For one, billionaire, faux populism, a complete lack of understanding of nuance, a need for adulation from the masses, and yet also a need for instant gratification. You also have someone who's completely morally bankrupt, only interested in appearance, and actually has no actual intellectual curiosity. And I think that's representative of many, I'm not saying all, but many of those who actually voted for him. And they did so because they are him. They're like Trump, but without the money and the power and the privilege. But what they see is that they see themselves in him. And they think that if only these people weren't in my way, these minorities, these, liberals, if all these people weren't in my way, then I could become rich and powerful too. So, of course, they are not going to care if he doesn't know the words. They're right beside him in this complete ignorance of what the anthem and the flag actually stands for and why people are actually protesting. So, while it is fun to sit there and make fun of the fact that, oh yeah, he's dumb and he actually doesn't know the words and he's mouthing them, there's actually a real point that you can sit there and make about his hypocrisy on the issue. Okay. I think I made myself fairly clear on that. Okay. Let's go to Fire and Fury. All right. Now, following the release of Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House, this is a controversial book written by Michael Wolff. The president and the White House has been in damage control. Now, for one, of course, everybody in the White House is denying this. Oh, no. All this stuff is made up. It's fabricated. It's not true. And then you have Trump himself tweeting out things like, I authorized zero access to the White House. Actually turned him down many times. For author of phony book. I never spoke to him for book. Full of lies, misrepresentations, and sources that don't exist. Look at this guy's past and watch what happens to him and Sloppy Steve. Sloppy Steve. I'm sorry Sloppy Steve. For some reason, it makes me think of Scuba Steve, and I know I have a YouTube viewer that goes by that name, so I apologize, but that's what it makes me think of. Now, anyway, so Trump has all these denials, and Well, those denials might not be true. And this is coming from somebody who's actually in the Trump orbit. This is Sebastian Gorka. Now, The Hill reports that former White House advisor Sebastian Gorka says that he was instructed to cooperate with the author Michael Wolff for the book Fire and Fury while he was working at the White House last year. Writing an op-ed for The Hill on Monday, Gorka said that he was at one point instructed to play ball with Wolff, but that he took the honorable position of declining because he thought the author was basically out there to damage the president. Well, he might be right about that. So he writes, when I met Michael Wolff in former Chief of Staff Reince Priebus's office, where he was waiting to talk to Steve Bannon, and I after him, and after I had been told to also speak to him for his book, my attitude was polite but firm. Thanks, but no thanks. Our brief encounter reinforced my gut feeling that this oleaginous scribe had no interest in being fair and unbiased. So I probably didn't say that word right, but I'm going to have to look that up later. So, okay, here's two things, right? Now, for one, yes, does this undermine the president's argument that he had zero access? Yes, absolutely, because he was in Priebus's office and he was talking to Steve Bannon. He obviously had access. He was there. Again, consider the Bannon quotes that weren't alt-right refuted, right? He had access. He was actually there. Now, secondly, and I love this. This is probably my favorite part. Notice how Gorka is setting himself up to look good in the president's eyes, because that's what it's all about. Got to look good for the big man, right? So he said he was approached, and he said no, and that, of course, was designed to paint him in a better light for Trump. So he's saying, hey, man, look, it wasn't me. I didn't say anything to him. You can't attribute any of those quotes to me. I knew he was up to no good in the beginning. Okay. Now, in a text to The Hill, Gorka, and this is another interesting part, because he said that he was told to cooperate with the book. Maybe ordered isn't the right word, but he was told, hey, look, they're doing this book. Go and talk to this guy. Well, who ordered him? Well, in a text to The Hill, Gorka did not say who had asked him to speak with Wolff, but that it was not Trump or Bannon. So who could it be? I don't know. The only other person mentioned in Gorka's op-ed is Priebus, who did not respond to requests for comment. So is it Reince Priebus? I don't know. Maybe. Which would be very, very interesting. Again, I'm assuming that Reince Priebus is now pouring Baileys on his cereal. I keep going back to that. Every time, man, every time. Now, in a subsequent tweet, Gorka said the request to work with Wolff came externally, but again, we don't know. So, were you ordered, or did they ask you, and the source apparently was external? I don't know. Right? Again, Gorka, not exactly the most trustworthy, and really, I think this is an attempt by him to make him look good, but at the same time, kind of proves that he did have access. So again, I wonder who ordered this. Now, Trump, I believe him when he says it wasn't Trump, because he didn't really care much at all about who he's talking to. As long as they listen, he only cares about himself. So is Trump like, no, go talk to this guy for me, right? Probably not. There's a possibility, but likely not. Now, here's the thing, right? Now, I've noticed that there's a lot of controversy about the sources in this book and whether or not the book is actually true. Now, I think there is a lot of accounts in the book that are true, and I think some that are likely embellished, or at least come from a certain place. Now, I'm still reading through it myself. So, and what I've read so far, it actually does match up to what other insiders have said about the Trump White House, about how it functions. But nonetheless, I'm open to the fact that there are accounts that are different and might not be entirely 100% honest and trustworthy, right? Now, Wolff's basis for these accounts are from different aides and advisors. Now, they publicly defend Donald Trump to a T, But as we know from other leaks and other sources, well, they also make fun of him behind the scenes. They call him an idiot. And that's one of the biggest things that they call him, other than childlike. So he's childlike and he's an idiot, according to a lot of these sources who, again, behind the scenes, say those things and worry privately about Trump starting a nuclear war with North Korea. Yet publicly they're like, no, I can't believe you would say anything about the president. These leaks are absolutely deplorable. We gotta clamp down on that. I mean, we really gotta, get rid of them leakers. We gotta kick them out. Sessions, get on it, buddy. Get on it. They're the leakers. But anyway, look, this is what we've heard, again, from other leakers. So I think that this book is more true than it is false, based on the other accounts that have been reported. Now, these aides and advisors dispute Wolf's book, but I think they're mainly doing it because of damage control. Oh, no, I didn't say that. You took me out of context. And is it possible they were taken out of context in some accounts? Absolutely. But the way that I see it is that I think these people, in talking to Wolf, were giving their perspective of a White House that is deeply dysfunctional, chaotic, and most importantly in this context, competitive. So you have different factions inside of the White House fighting for supremacy. You had the establishment wing versus the Bannon wing, which of course is now gone. It's actually more establishment than it is anti-establishment now. So that's important to note. So the establishment is essentially won when it comes to the Trump administration. And yet you have people out there, hilariously enough, saying, Donald Trump, he drained the swamp. He's draining the swamp. No, he actually kicked out all the outsider influence, other than, I think, Stephen Mueller. And most of the guys that are on the Trump team are now establishment guys. Way to go. But anyway, those accounts, are some of them embellished or lacking context? Absolutely. But generally, the point of the book, despite its inconsistencies, despite some of those issues, has actually already been proven thanks to the response. The whole point of the book is to point out how dysfunctional the White House actually is and how nobody there actually knows what they're doing. That has already been proven. I mean, look at it this way. All right. Another way that the book has been proven to be true is the reaction to it. For example, the evisceration of Bannon, right? Bannon did not deny those quotes. Yes, he said, oh, no, he sometimes took them out of context. What are you talking about, Donald Jr.? I think he's an absolute patriot. No, the damage is already done. Trump believes Bannon quotes. So, yes, he does believe that this a lot of this stuff in this book, or some of it, or else he wouldn't have made such a big public break with Steve Bannon. So, and he wouldn't be working so hard to actually shut this down. And then of course there's the tweets about Trump being a stable genius, and the lawsuit that has backfired spectacularly in their faces. So if you want to know if anything's true when it comes to the Trump administration, whether a rumor or not is true, just look at their response to it. Because I think if there's something that's so outlandishly false that's being levied against an administration, and you look at the reaction as, what are you going to do, right? Yeah, of course it's not real. Anyway, moving on. Then, okay, you can pretty much bet that allegation, again, is false. I mean, look at President Obama, and every time they brought up the birth certificate, he even showed his birth certificate. So, and they still ran with this ridiculous idea that, no, he was born in Kenya, he's not actually an American. Well, when it comes to the Trump White House, anything that comes out, well, that is remotely true, you can tell because they push so hard back against it. So, again, I think this book proves the point, and that Trump proves the point of the book every time he tweets in rage against it. So, all right. Moving on. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take a real quick break here. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. Help share out the video. Or the stream on both Facebook and on YouTube. So, all right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay right here. Round the Nation. Welcome back, Round the Nation, right here, TOT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Hey, congratulations, New Hampshire, for passing recreational cannabis. So that's awesome. Apparently, that makes 10 states. So wonderful. That's good news. We could always use more good news on the show because normally I go with the depressing stuff. And I'm not sure why. I must be a glutton or something like that. I don't know. All right. So, more stories here. Let's get to Mueller and move forward. All right. Should be interesting. The moment may soon arrive where President Trump has to face down Robert Mueller. Oh, this is going to be very interesting. Now, according to Business Insider, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team is now in talks with President Trump's legal defense team about possibly interviewing him as part of the investigation into Russia. Now, a person familiar with the matter told the New York Times on Monday that Mueller's team is mainly focused on James Comey's firing, which could be, of course, considered an act of obstruction of justice, and how much Michael Flynn knew about that as well. So that's very interesting. They're looking into that obstruction of justice charge. Now, interestingly enough, if you guys remember, Donald Trump already admitted to obstruction of justice. Remember, the White House had initially said that right after the firing of James Comey, that he was dismissed because of the way he handled the investigation into Hillary Clinton, right? So I love this, right? So first Trump comes out and says, or the Trump White House is like, no, you don't understand. We think that he dropped the ball when it came to the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, into her server. We were actually trying to, so we got rid of Comey because we couldn't trust him, right? One, we actually wanted to, and this was one of their first excuses here. We're going to do it to protect Hillary Clinton. Of course, nobody believes that. Ridiculous, right? Then they're like, actually, we weren't tough enough on Hillary Clinton. Now we need to do more investigations. But James Comey, he dropped it. He dropped the ball. So, and then, of course, Donald Trump on NBC in an interview said, no, actually, this Russia thing had been a factor in this decision. Well, that Russia thing happened to have been an investigation led by James Comey into possible Russian collusion. Now, he also reportedly told 2 top Russian government officials during a meeting 1 day after firing Comey that his dismissal had taken, quote, great pressure off him. Now, wait a minute. What if you hadn't done anything, then why would there be pressure, right? That's weird. Why would you feel pressure if you're completely innocent of doing anything? It's a good question, right? Look, he acts like a guilty person, and even if he's not a guilty person, even if he had done nothing or what he had done was something that wasn't illegal, well, he still acts that way, and so, of course, Mueller is going to be very, very interested in looking into it. Now, the article continues. Trump's legal team, which consists of personal defense lawyers John Dowd, Jay Sekulow, and White House lawyer Ty Cobb, have been strategizing about how to approach a possible interview with Mueller since former campaign chairman Paul Manafort was indicted in October. So they see that indictment and they're like, ooh, okay, look, let's get an interview. Let's have Mueller talk to Trump, and let's get this all straightened out. See, Mueller's team, well, okay, let me read you this first, and then talk about Trump's team. Mueller's team first brought up the possibility of interviewing the president when they met his lawyers late December, according to the Washington Post. However, there has not been a formal request, nor a date set. Now, that's interesting because they could put a request and Trump could turn it down. And then they could do a subpoena, which Trump cannot turn down. Now, Trump's legal team, look, I don't know if they believe Donald Trump did nothing or not, but so far they have advocated for full cooperation with the Mueller investigation, and that's fine. And actually, they keep telling him, don't worry, Donald, just cooperate with Mueller. Don't fire him. He's not going to find anything anyway in this investigation. This will be over very, very soon. And they kept promising that. First, they promised that by Thanksgiving, and then they promised it around Christmas. So that still didn't happen, and it looks like the Mueller investigation is going to be going at least into this year. But then again, if they talk to Donald Trump, that could be an indication that it actually is starting to wrap up. We'll see, right? But the point of bringing that up is the reason that these lawyers are saying that is so, again, Trump does not fire Mueller and actually do obstruction of justice. Because if he fires Mueller, well, that's it. You fire the guy that's investigating you and your campaign after firing Comey, well, then it just gets far, far worse. And look, forget collusion, by the way. Obstruction of justice and money laundering, if they find evidence of it, those are the things that could take down Donald Trump. So his lawyers are very, very careful in not letting Trump do that or apparently talk too much. Now, Trump's team is reportedly considering several options in response to the possibility of having an interview with Mueller. That includes having the president submit written responses to questions, which is actually a very safe option, and submitting a sworn affidavit declaring his innocence and saying that he did not collude with Russia. They are also looking into the possibility of avoiding an interview altogether. So they do not want to do a face-to-face, right? If anything, they'll want to do the written responses, like, okay, ask these questions ahead of time so then we can go and we can very, very carefully craft our own answers. In fact, if Trump does a sit down for a face-to-face, his team is willing to agree that only with certain parameters in place to limit the scope of questioning. Now, if you are part of Trump's defense, for one, I'm sorry. For two, yes, it would make sense to limit his abilities to speak off the cuff, and that's what written questions would actually do. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, because Donald Trump's an idiot, and he says things that would greatly incriminate him. And we know that because he has already done that. That NBC interview where he talked about Russia being the reason that he fired James Comey, that's a great example, right? So his lawyers are like, we would like to avoid that, if at all possible, which is smart, by doing a written questions, right? Again, so they can be carefully edited, drafted, analyzed to make sure that he doesn't admit something incredibly stupid. In fact, Donald Trump's probably not going to write it at all. He's not going to answer those questions. No, the legal team is probably going to draft it himself and say, here you go. Yes, these are Trump's answers. We made sure of it. Okay. But if you have a face-to-face interview, watch out. Not going to be good. I have a quote here from Jens David Olin, who's a vice dean at Cornell Law School, who is an expert in criminal law, who weighed in on this. And he's like, you know, a face-to-face interview would be a terrible idea. Why? He says, quote, his word salad approach to interviews could get him in real trouble in a Mueller interview if he says something that turns out to be a deliberate lie. That is not a question of if. That is a question of when. Because Donald Trump, I don't know if you know this, but he is a pathological liar. He lies about everything. He lies about things that he shouldn't have to lie about. I have the biggest crowd sizes in my inauguration ever. And then he gets Sean Spicer to go out there and lie about it, right? And repeat that in what was the most ridiculous press appearance I believe I may have ever seen. And I don't know, there are so many to choose from. So he goes out and he lies about things that normal people wouldn't lie about because there would be no payoff, no reason. But since he is a pathological liar, of course he's going to lie when it suits his own interest. And so, yes, this expert in criminal law says, don't do it. Do not do a face-to-face interview because it's going to turn out disastrously. He added, if I were one of his lawyers, I would insist on a written interview and refuse the in-person interview at all costs. But now, here's where it gets interesting because now there's a political angle to it, right? So if you're one of the Trump people or even progressives who believe that Mueller has nothing, that this investigation is a waste of time, then this interview could be seen politically as a positive. In fact, Olin says Trump's attorneys may feel that an interview will create positive press or be appreciated by his supporters. The negative repercussions of appearing to refuse to cooperate, on the other hand, are too damaging. So that's interesting. So Trump, if he believes that he did nothing wrong, like his lawyers seem to be projecting, then, okay, do the interview. But wait, his lawyers are like, let's not do the interview. Let's do something that's at least not face-to-face, if at all. Well, that doesn't really strike me as somebody who's confident. This is not bode well for their confidence in his not only interviewing skills, but whether or not he actually did anything wrong. So now that's a super important point. Now I think there's another point along those lines that I want to mention here, and this is what Olin said about a Trump interview. He said, quote, it's also possible that Trump may overrule his lawyer's advice because he feels he has nothing to hide, which is a dangerous belief for someone in his position. I don't think he fully appreciates the legal jeopardy he faces. And that is 100% true. He does not realize the legal jeopardy. He does not fully appreciate the kind of trouble that he could be in because he's an idiot and doesn't actually know anything. He doesn't pay attention. He thinks this is about talking to Vladimir Putin. No. This is more than about just talking. He doesn't understand the law. He's more than... Look, is he willing to flout the law? I think he is because I don't think he understands. This is a person that's never had any sort of consequences for his actions. He went on, for example, let me use the Access Hollywood tape. And here he brags about basically grabbing women by the genitals. I grab them by the pussy. That they let me do it. I do it without permission. And what happened? He became president after that. Consequences. He has never experienced any negative consequences. So he doesn't understand. So not only is he an idiot, he doesn't read, he doesn't really know anything. And let me add in that he also gets cheerleaded by his side because he's surrounded by sycophants who can't say anything negative about him or about his situation. And he's had no consequences. So, of course, that would be the most Trump thing that could happen. He strolls into an interview with Robert Mueller and is like, don't worry, guys. I got this. I got the best brain. I'm a very stable genius. This guy thinks that he can outwit Mueller. In reality, Mueller is playing chess. Donald Trump is playing Go Fish. So I can't wait to see what happens here. If he agrees for an in-person interview, oh, please do it. Please do it. And hey, look, if you guys believe that he's innocent, as I'm sure some of you do, then there is no downside to agreeing to this in-person interview, while there are plenty of upsides for you. So there you go. All right, I'm going to take one quick break here. We'll be back for the rest of the show. Stay right here. We've got net neutrality coming up next. All right. Welcome back around the nation right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. So if you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. Definitely appreciate it. So, all right, that helps out the show. So let's get back to the stories here. Net neutrality. So this is probably one of the most important stories that I have today. So we'll get to that. All right. So there has been a huge update in the fight for net neutrality. A Senate bill that would reverse the FCC's decision to repeal net neutrality actually just reached a huge milestone. They've actually reached their 30th co-sponsor. Now, what does that mean? That means that the bill will now receive a vote on the Senate floor, and Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is actually saying that he will put it on the floor. So he wants to put it to a vote. They've got enough co-sponsors, so they're going to do it. Now, let me explain what this means. Now, the bill, which is being pushed by Senator Ed Markey, would use Congress's authority under something called the Congressional Review Act to reverse the FCC's rollback of net neutrality. Now, interestingly enough, if you use the Congressional Review Act, as the Republicans have been very successful at doing, then you can make sure that a similar rule cannot be put back into place. So, for example, they've been using this on a lot of President Obama's regulations. Well, now that they've removed those regulations, guess what? We cannot put those regulations back or anything like it. So, I think, for example, one of those was a coal dumping rule, right? Where they can't regulate against dumping coal ash into the rivers. So, guess what? If we get a Democratic president, we can no longer create a law that prevents coal ash dumping into the rivers, thanks to the Congressional Review Act. So It's a negative when used poorly, or at least for poor purposes. But in this case, the Congressional Review Act might actually be used for something good. Now, that means that net neutrality, in this case, if it actually passes a vote and, of course, gets signed by the president, that would be a great outcome. As Hill explains, under the CRA, if a joint resolution of disapproval has enough support, it can bypass committee review and be fast-tracked to a floor vote. If the bill is passed and signed into law, it would vacate the FCC's vote last month and prohibit the agency from ever trying to repeal the rules in the future. Lawmakers have 60 days after the FCC submits its regulations to Congress to pass the CRA. The repeal order is currently waiting approval from the Office of Management and Budget. So, now I bet you're wondering who put it over the top. Surprisingly, it's somebody that I've been very critical of, Senator Claire McCaskill. I know. Now, Markey said that we have now reached a magic number to 30 to secure a vote on the Senate floor, and that number will only continue to climb. Well, I hope so, but I have a feeling that he's being overly optimistic. Now, he said, quote, Republicans are faced with a choice. Be on the right side of history and stand with the American people who support a free and open internet, or hold hands with the special interests who want to control the internet for their own profit. Now, Markey, he's not wrong here, because I'm going to give you some poll numbers about net neutrality. A University of Maryland poll last month found that 83% of Americans and 75% of Republicans support net neutrality rules. Now, the bad news on this is that so far, there are not a lot of Democrats that are actually supporting the bill. Yes, they have 30 co-sponsors, all of them Democrats, but there are still 17 that are not signing on. Now, that includes Tom Carper, Bob Casey, Chris Coons, Catherine Cortez Masto, Joe Donnelly, Dianne Feinstein, Heidi Heitkamp, Doug Jones. Oh, look at that. Doug Jones barely beat a pedophile. Still not in favor of net neutrality. Joe Manchin, of course, Bob Menendez, Chris Murphy, Patty Murray, Bill Nelson, Tina Smith, John Tester, and Mark Warner. So a lot of these names are pretty familiar because a lot of them are corporate Democrats. These are the people that claim to be moderates. Oh, no, we're more in touch with the people. Turns out the people are more moderate. They're looking for not Republican solutions or Democratic solutions. They're looking for moderate solutions. We're right in the middle with the rest of America. Really? 83% of all Americans, that's Democrats and Republicans and independents, they all support net neutrality rules. You're not standing with Americans in the middle. You are standing with the special interest. You are standing with the giant telecommunications corporations that want to eliminate net neutrality rules. Why? So they can make billions of dollars. They can put in their fast lanes. They can block and throttle content. And they can do it with impunity. And they can do that so they can make millions and millions and billions of dollars. So, politically, this is a slam dunk. Even if they don't actually win on this issue, they can actually appeal to their constituents. Again, Republican politicians have constituents that believe in net neutrality rules. 75%, right? This is a hugely bipartisan issue. They can actually use that in the 2018 midterms. Now, do they have any Republican support? Absolutely not, right? Now, we know why the Democrats and Republicans aren't putting in so far is because they're donors, right? Their donors hate net neutrality. These same companies put billions of dollars, or millions of dollars, into Senate campaigns, and they do not want this. So here you have Dianne Feinstein and some of the others. They're going to go with their donors. They're standing on the side of the special interests, for now at least. But we do have 30 Democrats plus independents, for example, Angus King and Senator Bernie Sanders, that have signed on to this. So, but any Republicans? No, absolutely not, because they're all bought by special interests. Now, politically, that should hurt them in the midterms, right? But we do have gerrymandering and all that, so I don't know. But the Democrats are making this a political gamble by making the Republicans take a public stance, and I actually think that's a good political strategy. However, far beyond strategy, I actually just want this to win. This is a winning issue. This is Americans. Most Americans want net neutrality rules. There is no reason why we should eliminate this. This is good policy. But again, I don't know if it's actually going to win. And that's what's sad. And if that isn't a huge indictment of our system, plus the Democratic establishment and the role of money in politics, I don't know what is. Now, along with the Republicans having to go on the record of being basically telecom shills, we now apparently will have corporate Democrats there as well. All the Democrats, you guys need to look at this and immediately get behind the CRA. Just look at the polls. Just look at a poll. And if any Republicans join in, then God bless. But I think it's very, very unlikely. Nonetheless, I do hope that this turns into a progressive wave, either in 2018 that replaces those corporate Democrats, or shames them into at least voting for something that should be a no-brainer. All right. I'm sorry to do this. I got to take another quick break. We'll be right back. All right. Getting right back to the stories here. We got time for one more. Now, a video of a teacher getting removed during a school board meeting is going viral for reasons that I'm going to show you. Now, during the public comments portion of the Vermilion Parish School Board meeting, a teacher, Daisha Hargrave, who was an English language teacher at Renee Ross Middle School, asked a question to the board regarding salaries. Now, I'm going to show you the video of that question, and then we'll comment on it. Take a look.
Superintendent, how are you going to take a raise when there's ELA? When I first started teaching ELA, there was like 20, 21 kids in a class, and now there's 29 kids in a class that we are now having, and we have not gotten raises. How are you going to take that money? Because it's basically taking out of the pockets of teachers.
Stop right now. That's not germane to what's on the agenda tonight.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Come on now.
How are you going to take?
What's on the agenda is the superintendent's contract.
With a raise.
With a
raise.
Well, that's not talking about the raise. It's talking about
I am. I'm saying, how are you taking the raise when you're basically taking from the teachers and employees under you, when we have class sizes that are that big? This directly speaks to what you have just voted on.
Ms. Hargrave, a year ago, I presented to this board. Okay.
Well, I do not have to say.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Excuse me, officer. Can I not stand when I'm being spoken to?
Anybody?
Is there a rule?
You're gonna leave, or I'm gonna remove you. Take your things and go.
Are you serious? I hope somebody has this on video.
I mean, really.
Excuse me.
All right, both members
Is it
commentary.
against policy to
I would like to
stand?
say something.
Sir, do not.
Hold on.
This is the most disgraceful and distasteful thing
I
I've
want
ever
another
seen.
comment.
A
But
comment.
she wasn't talking to you, she was talking to
It was
Mr.
it
Pio.
was
I don't
comments
want
for the
another-
superintendent.
I don't want the audience commenting without being recognized.
She was recognized.
He was recognized.
By you.
And he was
He was
responding.
speaking to me directly.
And he
right.
responded to her,
That's exactly
but
right.
you run everything. He did.
All right, board
And the
member
superintendent can't even look at her when she's talking.
Okay, so now what she asked about salaries. Well, how could you give the, vote to give yourself, the superintendent, a bigger salary if the teachers are getting more students put into their classrooms, less resources to work with, and less pay? They didn't get a raise. The superintendent is getting a raise. So that question is absolutely valid, right? Why aren't we getting a raise? Now, as you can see, though, or as you heard, the guy that's getting asked the question is like, how dare you ask about my salary? Out of order. This is not a question and answer period. Gee, I wonder why he's so insistent about answering that question. So, okay. So you see, she gets escorted out. Now, maybe you say, look, maybe she was being rude and she was not following the rules and was being a little bit disruptive. Okay, look, I don't agree with you. I think her question was absolutely valid. And to be honest, I don't give a damn whether or not she was respectful. But as the other people around her didn't point out, they pointed out that she was actually recognized to speak. And that they agreed with her. They're like, yeah, wait a minute. You bring up a good question. And yes, you were authorized to speak, so let her ask her question. So they didn't agree, and so she leaves the room, right? Now, I want to show you what happened after she left the room.
Why? What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't. Can you explain? Are you kidding me?
Stop resisting.
I am not. You just pushed me to the floor. Sir, hold on. I am way smaller than you.
That's what happened. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Well, dude, you push her to the floor. I love when they say that. Like, you got to stop resisting. Dude, you shoved her to the floor, to the ground, and then handcuffed her for asking a question. Again, you didn't have to drag her out. She left the meeting voluntarily after asking a question that apparently they didn't like. So she goes out there, and then they start handcuffing her. And I'll have the full video in the description so you can check it out. But look, this is what a police state looks like. We are living in a police state. That means don't ever ask questions. Don't ever challenge power, because if they catch you, they will crush you. They will shove you to the ground, and they will haul you away in handcuffs for challenging the status quo. It's gross. Now get a load of this, right? And this was posted by KATC. So that's where the video is coming from. And again, I will have a link to it, the full video in the description. The school board has decided they will not be pressing charges. Wait a minute. This woman is a victim. It is she who should be pressing charges against the cops. Again, she was arrested forcefully for asking a question. But of course, they add in the resisting arrest. Resisting arrest. Now, of course, the cops probably have a different story. They obviously overreacted. And that's why you heard him say, oh, stop resisting, stop resisting. Because now they're going to claim that, no, she went after him. But guys, we have videotape. There is video of this. You can't get away from this, right? I mean, this could have been avoided. This is now becoming a national story because of what the police are doing. The fact that we do live in a police state and that we are being reminded of it every single day. That we have been, that we have given the police way too much power. And that now they have become the tools that protect the powerful against the powerless. This is a great example of that. And here's a teacher asking, wait a minute, why aren't we getting fair wages? Why are you getting a raise, superintendent, but I'm not? Well, how dare you ask that question you got to go. Leave or we're going to drag you out. Okay, well, she leaves peacefully, and then she still gets dragged out anyway. This is insanity. And I don't know. I honestly, look, when we talk about police stories, when we talk about police shootings especially, we think, okay, if we just change the training, right? We change the training so that they don't shoot people. Well, in this case, nobody was shot, thankfully, but I don't think that this is the kind of problem that can be remedied by training. We have turned the police into tools of oppression. And yes, I realize that they have been oppressing African American minority communities for decades, hundreds of years. But this is new. Now it affects white people. And now I think that because of that fact, and it is sad that it's taken this much, I think, to get people to notice that there's a problem with policing now. How it is now being used as an outfit for the elites. Even though I don't think that superintendent is all that rich or elite, but he is wealthy, at least wealthier than the teachers, and obviously has far more power than the teachers, and is using the state to be able to crush dissent. It is absolutely gross that this is happening in America, but there it is. All right. I'm going to save stories for tomorrow since we're out of time here. Again, I do apologize for the different breaks that we had. But we've got a story. We still have the Amazon story to get to, as well as a disastrous story on child mortality in America. That's fun. So we'll have that. We'll save that for tomorrow. We also have Ron Placone coming on the show as usual. We're going to have a fun segment on that. Maybe we'll talk about Oprah. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. So tune in then tomorrow, of course, 3 p.m. Eastern, either on youtube.com/TYTNation or facebook.com/TYTNation. You can find us streaming on there every day, 3 p.m. Eastern. So now you know where to go. All right. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to give us a like and a share if you haven't already. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.